Alright, response video to Nick, the Modern Mystic, number 5, I guess. In this series, I'll post a link to the In Mendum channel where the other 4 are. Or I'll post this as a response. That would be the logical thing to do. So, link down there to previous videos if you're interested. Doesn't really matter. Whatever. Yeah, so let's just keep dissecting what this economics thing is. And so the video I'm responding to, just talking about pension funds, talking about New Jersey, but it's like you said, every state has played the same game. So they take this retirement fund money that's supposed to be just like money you put aside for the future. Now, first problem, there's the expectation that you put this money aside and it grows. It doesn't just be money put aside. It's just not surplus. No, it's surplus that has a guaranteed return. So it's somehow going to do work. It's going to be productive. By just sitting on the shelf somewhere, it's going to do productive work. 8 point whatever percent work, almost 10%. So that's the expectation. You have $1 million, you should get $100,000 income. So $1 million is basically worth two human power. That's how it works out. Somehow, if you put a pile of $1 million on your desk, and you go throw that into the system, somehow that $1 million will do 2 human beings worth of productive labor. Okay, and give you the salary for free. That money will work as a slave for you and produce 2 human power worth of productivity. And that's the economy we've built. And it's a delusion. It's bullshit. The whole stock market is bullshit. The idea isn't, it's a trader's market. Theoretically, in a stable world where you're not living off increases in population, the stock market doesn't grow. It doesn't go anywhere. Okay, all it does is it's a trader's market. There's things that go down and there's things that go up. And that's how it's supposed to be paying for itself. The losers pay the freight for the winners, like a casino. That's the way it should work. But that's not the way the system has been for the last 3 or 4 decades, because we've found all kinds of new cracks to exploit, one-time opportunities, so to speak, like oil. Okay, yeah, it'll evaporate eventually. It's gone. It's used up, and eventually you use up the circumstance you're taking advantage of, and so then the same expectations can exist. But just the very idea that this is what's wrong with our economy. This is a perfect example. There's this expectation that you put money aside, surplus, and somehow the surplus grows. So I take a bag of wheat and I put it in a silo somewhere or whatever, and I have the expectation that a year from now I have 10% more wheat. And that's a stupid expectation. Yeah, whatever. We can get into the whole banking thing, but I think that's all circular. That it doesn't go anywhere. Okay, I mean it's artificial stimulus, because essentially it becomes a tax. All right, because no matter what's getting invested in, it has to be the money has to be siphoned back out, and it's siphoned back out with huge inefficiencies, because now there's a whole bunch of other people taking their cut of what's getting siphoned. So the long-term cost of maintaining the debt is much more expensive than what would be the short-term cost of putting the surplus aside, having it retain its value, and then waiting till you have enough surplus to do whatever it is you want to do. Or putting your surplus together with somebody else's surplus and collectively doing something with the surplus. But the idea that it's all entitled, just broadly entitled to a profit, is just stupid. And so, yeah, I mean, there's no justifying what state governments have done. There's no justifying what the federal government has done. This is voodoo economics. We labeled it in 1984 or whatever it was. Okay, we figured out it's all nonsense, and it didn't matter. Okay, there was whole Concord coalitions that pointed out it's all bullshit. Okay, we can't live on debt. And all that rationality evaporated, and it just became, no, let's just ignore the facts and let's keep investing in the fantasy, and this whole thing is going to sustain and last forever. And let's even put Social Security. They even had that idea. I mean, there was actual presidents of the United States who without getting laughed out of the room, were suggesting we invest the Social Security trust fund in the stock market. I like, that's going to work. Oh, because yeah, well, over the last 3 decades it's worked, so it's going to work forever. I mean, that's the theory, and it was just completely built on bullshit. on nonsense. I mean, it's so easy to poke holes in this crap, and yet it goes on, and it goes on because people aren't. You know, it's like a state like New Jersey. Yeah, people are very busy, and it's all a bunch of A personalities, and they're all a little bit fanatic and anal and crazy. But yeah, they don't have time for reading newspapers and getting an, you know, economics education. Well, you can't really get an economics education, right? I mean, the economics education being taught in universities is all Adam Smith bullshit. It has nothing to do with reality. So yeah, so nothing gets oversighted. No one's poking the holes in the bullshit, and so the bullshit gets become policy. So yeah, the bottom line is this whole thing is going to have to be rebalanced. Now I feel bad for these people with their pension funds, but any union of workers who was just taking advantage of the very system that's enslaving them. They're saying, yeah, let's invest our pension money in the stock market, make a bunch of people really rich artificially. Yeah, that's a good idea. So I mean, they invested in the very system that allowed them to be owned, that allows them to continue to be owned. So it's so stupid. You know, yeah, and the solution, in my opinion, is to quit the fraud of all this nonsense, the fraud of surplus being more valuable than a human being and a human being's labor. The hell with that. So whatever. I mean, the other video I've pointed out, you know, go to non-profit businesses. This isn't that complicated. You need a service to be provided. You engineer a company that provides the service. You make a few people at the top accountable. You know, they'll get a nice, big, huge salary, and if they don't produce, they get fired. It's that simple, and it's the same rules for all the employees. There's no guaranteed jobs, no we have a union, no tenure, none of this crap. You know, and make it a real world, and make, like I said, the consumers are employees. They're the workers, and the consumers are basically the same people. So they're going to know when they have to pull the reins in. And as long as they don't have control over any entity, as long as the control is always balanced, there's not going to be there is a balance, I guess, is the argument I need to make to people, is that there can be a way to balance those two interests. To make sure that workers they're not stripped of their dignity, and that their rights are secure, and to make sure consumers aren't getting ripped off, and getting the best, most efficient product at the most, you know, at the reasonable exploitation. You know, not forcing people to do jobs that are going to get them killed. You know, pay for their boots and their safety equipment, but yeah, screw paying for their pensions, screw paying for all this other crap. You pay people a salary, you don't insure anything. And again, like I said, the whole idea. You also post, I might as well talk real quick on it. I got a little bit of time. You know, about this whole actuarial thing about the Japanese and the fact that they're aging population, and you know, one worker for every retiree. Well, in principle, that doesn't really matter, because one person should produce enough productivity in their life to pay for their retirement expense, right? I mean, theoretically, that's how it should work. It should be a 1-to-1 ratio. So whether you're paying for your father or you're paying for yourself, it doesn't really matter. The idea is that you pay for one retirement through your working career, that you're taxed enough, or however the surplus is extracted, that somehow some productivity is extracted from you during your working career to pay for your retirement. So it should be a 1-to-1 ratio. There should be one retiree and one worker. One worker shouldn't be paying for 4 retirements, or whatever the scenario is. But whatever. I mean, these are all details to be argued. But again, you know, your video clearly illustrates, in my opinion, yes, this whole idea of what kind of return should be gleaned off of surplus, off money. You know, how productive a worker is money. And right now, money is the highest paid worker in America. And in my opinion, it should be the lowest paid. And that's what's got to get fixed.